All right, hello, hello. Can you guys hear
There
me
he
okay?
is. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. We are good to go. Y'all ready?
Ready.
All right,
Absolutely.
go live.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to our live. My name is Emmanuel Adams, CEO and founder of NBD Records. And today we are here with some of the most amazing people in the music industry. First off, I'd like to introduce Mike Wallz. He is a creative entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of the leading lifestyle witness brand for and by the culture, The Free Life, world touring creative entrepreneur working with the likes of Jay-Z, Nicki Minaj, 1500 or Nothing, and one of the most creative pioneers in the 1500 Sound Academy.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Emmanuel. Pleased to be here.
Also, I'd like to introduce Miss Wyan Vaughn, two-time Grammy Award winning artist, works with the likes of Kendrick Lamar, just an amazing singer. And also she has an amazing radio show that's very inspiring. So we would like to welcome her as well.
Thank you so much, Manny, for having us.
All right. And then introducing the rest of the team, we have Mr. Chase Weimer, producer, artist, kind of helps meld NBD records together and just an amazing person all overall. And then my go-to, my right-hand man, Josh Tarr, amazing artist, amazing producer, can film, just overall man of many talents and master of all, honestly. He does an amazing job of what NBD does today.
It's a pleasure to be here to be able to represent.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Manny. Appreciate the kind words.
All right. So first of all, I wanted to get started with our two guests today. I just want to start off with just some questions and introductions about who you are, why you chose your career, kind of a little bit background about yourself, and what kind of got you to where you are today.
Absolutely. What's up, world? Hope everybody's having a blessed and fantastic, amazing day today. The vibrations are high and everything is working in our favor. We are light and we are love. My name is Mike Wallz. I'm originally from Silver Spring, Maryland, DMV. I've been in LA for about 7 years now. And my journey in the entertainment industry really started in sports. I've been playing music and sports my whole life. And I got to college on a football scholarship, but also used that as a platform to have a fan base to do music. I was doing both at the same time, which was something that that it really didn't happen that way. And it was kind of like unprecedented. Ended up starting a radio show, came out to LA and learned quickly that I didn't have the tools that I needed to sustain a career in the entertainment industry. One, I had the skills, but I did not necessarily have the business acumen, the relationships, the network, and just overall know how things work. So 2 years into my journey, I was at a day job, kind of off track from my original intention from coming to LA, really down, not necessarily down on my luck, but really down on my creative energy. And I really got into contact with a group of friends who were doing music. I surrounded myself with more people who were doing the things that I wanted to do, and eventually got involved with the CEO of one of the greatest music industry engines of all time, Lawrence Dobson of 1500 or Nothing. And since then, he's become a great mentor, collaborator, and really, meeting him was a defining moment in my career because I got to finally have the insight, the close proximity to the thing that I wanted to have and the things that I wanted to do. And I think that's one of the first points that I want to impress upon everybody listening to this is you really have to you have to know what you want to do, but you have to listen to the people who are doing the things that you want to do. And the first of the basics, and we'll go over that in a little bit after my intro, but it's who do you listen to? Listen to the people who have what you want and been where you've been, right? So since then, you know, me and Rance have been adamantly working on the 1500 Nothing brand, shifting an underground label that's been responsible for all of the music that you've heard for the past like 20 years and didn't even know it was them, to innovating and creating what we now have and know as the 1500 Sound Academy. And that's probably one of the biggest it's one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. It's one of the most purposeful missions and projects that I've ever been a part of. It's a superhero school for creative geniuses that's designed to teach you how to go to the highest level of your craft, your career, and also internally as a person. It's a holistic method to creating sustainable success. And that's what we're all about here, not only at the Free Life, Raise It Up Why, but 1500 family, 1500 Sound Academy in general. And that's what we aim for our students to take away. In between then, I've done everything from creative direction for legendary brand Cross Colors to touring with Jay-Z and 1500 Nothing for the 444 tour. And you know, the world tour with Nicki Minaj last year in Australia and Europe. And you know, my passion has taken me all around the world. I've got to live a dream that was only a dream when I was in the seats that y'all are in today, you know, but I finally got the ability and the opportunity to actualize those things and learn everything. I took the stairs, you know, you can't ever skip any levels, but I've been able to go through the process of what success means to me, achieve that, and now my mission is to give it back to you all through being a teacher, being a coach, being an artist, being an example of a lifestyle that I call the free life. And that's it. That's me. I'm gonna pass it to my girl Y, one of the greatest entertainers, singers, songwriters, professors, mentors, teachers, lights of the culture of all time, Queen YN.
Love, respect, love, always. Hey, everybody. I'm really happy that you all are taking the time to invest into yourselves by listening to the kings that are on this particular broadcast, not only the ones like Manny who brought us here today, but the gentleman like Mike Wallz, who's invited me here to stand beside him and represent the brand that we've helped 1500 or Nothing CEO Rance Dobson create, which is the 1500 Sound Academy and all of the glory that is therein. My name is YN Vine. I, introduction-wise, was born into the music industry. My mom is from a group from the 70s called The Emotions. For all you youngins out there, since there's a lot of students on here, that song is, "You got the best of my love, whoa, whoa." That's my mama and my aunties, and currently, as a family legacy group, and it's the family business, I tour with them, as does my older edutaining sister. I point back there because, you know, we're all on this quarantine situation. So I get the front half of the house and my sister Wendy gets the back half of the house. And she works for Cal State Los Angeles as an assistant director to a whole program there. And I am an academic counselor as well as a professor at Pasadena City College's Ujima program. It's the Black scholarship component to the program there. Outside of my mother being from the 70s Grammy Award winning, American Music Award winning group, the Emotions, my dad and she met on tour as my dad was playing for Brothers Johnson. And when they met, my mom introduced my dad to a gentleman named Maurice White. He's the fearless leader of a group called Earth, Wind, and Fire. And when my dad got to meet him, he wrote, of the songs that he wrote for Earth, Wind, and Fire, the biggest one is "Let's Groove Tonight." You know, so fun fact, I'm right here in South LA, neighboring Compton, California. This is the house my dad grew up in. It's a family heirloom now because my sister and I own it. But in the garage right back there that was converted into a 24-track analog studio, that's where they wrote Let's Groove Tonight. And when you hear the 747 line, my mom said that out of frustration because we're 15 minutes from LAX and planes kept going overhead, messing up the recording. So how about that? Give you a little history lesson. They was writing Let's Glide. My mom was like a 747. My dad was like, oh, we keeping that. And that's one of the most memorable parts of the song. Is that not nuts? Anyway, so I come from a legacy of Black music, not just Black music, but American music, not just American music, but soul music, R&B, love, jazz, things of that nature. And I come from the WLVs, Wayne, Wanda, Wayne, Wendy, Wine, Whitney, and Warren. That's my whole family. All initials are WLV. We stand not only for our names, we stand for wisdom, love, and vision. And whenever we get the opportunity to speak to beautiful people like you all, our mission is to make sure that we impart some of the wisdom that we've lived and learned through all of the love that's here in this house, in this legacy in music, and in just being a beautiful Black soulful auntie, like I call myself. And then also the vision, being a leader and being able to see past what exactly is there into what can and will be. So that's where we at.
Amazing, amazing. Yes, especially because in Columbus they had a huge Earth, Wind, and Fire concert in Dublin, Ohio, and it was packed out. And they actually sung that song. So that's crazy to see like how it was created. All right, so
Absolutely.
moving on. Just overall, what I want to kind of touch on is basically just overall advice. You know, we're young artists out here, and you know, just give us kind of like the foundation of what do we need. I mean, we know, but then again, there is some hidden blocks that people a lot of times miss. And you know, if you could go back and tell yourself as a young artist, what would you tell yourself?
Well, that's a multi-level question, right? Because I think one of the first responses a young artist would expect to hear is immediately advice on how to take my music to the next level, or how to get on, or how to become successful in the industry. And I would say that is a part of it, but I would say it doesn't come before mastering yourself. And the first thing that I want to impart on you guys is just a concept called mastering the basics. You really have to master the basics within yourself, within your craft, within your relationships, and how you deal with people. So the basics that I learned is from a teacher named Kevin Trudeau, and he says the first of the basics is, who do you listen to? Like I mentioned before, listen to the people that have what you want and have been where you've been. If you don't have access or proximity to those people, those mentors, they don't have to be physical. They can be in books. They can be on YouTube channels. They can be on channels that you follow on social media. You can get a lot of different information from a lot of different people, and you can apply all that stuff all day long, but it's not going to be as sharp and as potent and as accurate as somebody who's actually done it. So who do you listen to is like number one. Number two is your teachability index. How teachable are you? Do you think you know everything or are you open to learning? Do you seek information, or once you've got your degree, or once you took a class, or once you leave this place, you're going to take that information and say, I know everything, I'm just going to run with it? The teachability index has a lot to do with who you are and your relationship with your own ego. If you, like I said, if you have an ego, then you probably aren't listening with your two ears, and you're probably speaking more than you're listening. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason. You should use them proportionally. Okay. The third of these basics is your willingness to grow. Your willingness to accept change. How flexible are you? We do a show at the Quarantine Academy, 1500 Sound Academy. It's called Quarantine Academy. We recently had Greg Fillingames musical director, pianist, and producer for the greats, Michael Jackson, to name a few, just to name the one. But he said once, the key to success, he was talking about directing for Prince, actually. He says, the key to success is flexibility and versatility. If you can remain flexible and versatile, you will always have an opportunity. Being stagnant or being just being kind of stuck in your own ways has a lot to do with like your willingness to learn, but it also has a lot to do with how you move. You know what I'm saying? You really have to be flexible, to say the least. And I wanted to talk to you guys also about learning. Like, you always have to be a student of learning as well. There's 4 steps to learning. Are y'all ready for them? The 4
Pen and
steps
pads,
are
kids. Pen and pads.
Pen and pad. It's time to get your notebooks out. The 4 steps to learning, and this is learning anything. And this is, if you don't take anything away from today, this is the one thing that you can take. Learning is a process, and it takes 4 steps. The first step is unconscious incompetence. That means you're unconscious of what you're incompetent at. You don't know what you don't know. There's only so many ways you can say, right? That's the first step, unaware of your ignorance. The second step is being brought into awareness of your ignorance or what you don't know, and that's called conscious incompetence. I am now conscious of what I previously didn't know. Just because you know it doesn't mean that you can do it yet. And just because you know it doesn't mean that you're going to practice it yet. So this is a very important stage. This is the stage where you have to make a decision stage. Do I take one of the pills and go back to the ignorance is bliss? Or do you take the pill and practice and manifest what you want to become through the knowledge that you are now aware of learning? So recap, unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know. And that takes humility. Conscious incompetence. I now know what I don't know. Now what are you going to do about it? And that brings you to the third stage. Conscious competence. Conscious competence is the stage of practice. That is discovering what you didn't know. Well, understanding first that you don't know everything, discovering what you don't know, and practicing what you're working to get good at. The conscious competence stage is the process of learning and practice and training. And that's where we are all at in whatever subject or field we're learning. If you are in college, you're learning how to be competent. If you're practicing an instrument, you're learning how to be competent at that instrument. You're also learning what you don't know about that instrument, and you're also staying humble to the fact that you don't know everything, and there's more to learn. And the fourth and final stage to learning anything in the world is called conscious. Can anybody guess? Conscious. No, I'm sorry. It's not even conscious. The fourth step is called unconscious competence. We're going from unconscious incompetence, I don't know what I don't know, to conscious incompetence. I now know that I didn't know that, to conscious competence. I know now that I'm practicing at this. And once you do the conscious competence stage long enough, you'll be unconsciously competent. What is that? That is a habit. Unconscious incompetence is practicing through repetition, through consistency, the correct way, long enough to the point where it's ingrained inside of you. It becomes habit. It becomes a part of you. I am consciously competent at walking. I am unconsciously competent at walking. I am unconsciously competent at the mastery of my craft. I'm unconsciously competent at speaking. Because why? I practiced it in my conscious competence stage. I learned that I didn't know certain things in my conscious incompetence stage. And this all started with humility and understanding that you don't know everything in my unconscious incompetence stage. So those are the 4 steps of learning, and you can apply this to anything that you want to learn and become a master at it. But you have to know those steps and be true to those steps, because habits are ultimately what rule who you are. The more that you have to think about something, the longer time it's going to take. But if you can lock in and practice and commit things to memory, muscle memory, mental memory, full body memory, the same way you walk, the same way you talk, the same way you move, you know what I'm saying? That's unconscious incompetence, and that's the stage that we're all trying to get to. That's how you master your craft. That's how you always can continue perfecting your tools in your artistry. And yeah, and then I guess the final thing that talks about mastering the basics is mastering yourself. And I'm going to speak on something that I don't know if you guys are familiar with, so I'm going to take it slow and you can interject at any time. But when you master the basics of yourself, when you have self-mastery, what you're doing is practicing having a peak state. When I say peak state, I'm talking about vitality. I'm talking about high energy. I'm talking about enthusiasm. I'm talking about love. I'm talking about all these high energy components, high energy vibrations. You can call it whatever you want. It's a state of being. You want to master having a high state of being, okay? When you talk about people being productive, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that they're running around getting as much work done? I know artists and producers in the industry right now, multi-Grammy award winning, multi-million dollars. You know what I'm saying? They have all the physical things that you can think of. But if that's your definition of success, it's a shallow definition, but it's also the definition that's been promoted to us in culture, in our mental conditioning, to know that physical success that you can see, is the total definition of success. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. You have to take, or I would encourage you to take a holistic approach to what success is to you. And mastering your state of being is one of the, if not the most important tool that you can have to sustain a career, a life, a family, relationships, in anything. Creating, having mastery skills of your emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is picking and choosing your battles when you have when you get emotional. Do your emotions rule you, or do you rule your emotions? When something goes wrong, somebody says something any kind of way, you're going to deal with a lot of different people on a lot of different grade levels in this industry and in all industries and in life in general. And the main way that you navigate the sharks, the creeps, the snakes, and all those, the assholes, excuse me. The main way you navigate this is continuing to have a peak state, having a high vibrational state, having a positive attitude, having, just continuing to mastering your emotional self, mastering your mental well-being, and mastering your physicality, your physiology. Changing your physiology is one of the #1 ways to achieving a peak state. What is physiology? Physiology is exercise. Physiology is jumping up and down and dancing in the morning and getting lit and filling your body with that good chi energy and that spirit that moves through you, that you move into the world with, that you impact and affect everybody with. Your energy and your auric fields, without seeing it, without you even, you may or may not be conscious of your own energy, but once you are, take responsibility for it and know that energy is given to every single person that you interact with, whether it's physical, whether it's digital, whether it's spiritual. People can feel you. You cannot we are not together right now, but you feel me.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Literally.
You know what I mean? So mastering your state, having being intentional on having a positive peak vibration or a high state of being is very important. And I can tell you, and I'll give you guys notes on this later. I'm just rambling. But basically, some of the key components of mastering your state is how you start your day. Whew. And how you start your day is really dependent on how you end your day also, right? Sleep is important. Team no sleep does not, no. Team no sleep. That's like, and I want to impress upon y'all, like y'all are college students, so I understand cram culture. I was a college student too, you know what I'm saying? I got good grades in school. I played Division I football, and I was an academic All-American. So I understand that the workload can be incredibly vicious, right? But you have to, or I would encourage you to not feed into cram culture, not feed into no sleep culture, not feed into team anti-wellness, team destruction. You know what I mean? Because how you start your day and how you end your day will depend on the type of energy that you have. A lot of people, I'm no disrespect to anybody, but a lot of people depend on sugar. A lot of people depend on caffeine. I'm not saying that these things are bad. I'm saying dependence on anything outside of yourself is something to be looked at. A lot of people depend on external things to give them energy and to give them that consistency and that juice to move forward. But what I'm telling you is once you discover your internal energy, once you discover the internal power, once you learn how to harness that, once you learn how to consistently intend on becoming and continuing to become the greatest version, the greatest vibrational, the greatest servant version of yourself, you unstoppable, champ. You unstoppable. Why? Because nobody can interfere with your energy when you're at a peak state. Every low vibration succumbs to a peak vibration. You can have somebody trying to, basically what I'm saying is what you consume is who you become. If you're listening, watching, speaking, eating, drinking, sniffing, anything that doesn't contribute to your vitality is doing the opposite. And so what you want to do is control as many of those variables as you lifestyle that promotes wellness, sustainability, and high power. In the morning, wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is don't look at your phone. I know that that's hard to do because your alarm is actually your phone. It's like, oh man, I'm just turning it off. Oh, now I'm scrolling. How did that happen? But when you give your energy to social media first thing in the morning, you can't give it to yourself. The thing is, you want to be able to wake up in the morning, meditate. We'll talk about meditate. We'll talk about all these different things. But what I like to do, I wake up in the morning, I meditate. I thank God. I tell myself that it's going to be a good day before I get out of bed. I don't question it. I decide it. You feel me? If I'm YN, I'm dancing first thing in the morning. Me, I like to take a run, you know, get my chi energy in, get my exercise going.
Love it.
I drink water. Water is life. And I subscribe to a plant-based diet. So I'm eating veggies and fruits and proteins from those things and sustaining my energy that way. And it's made just an incredible difference in my life. And I've learned just through my journey, I wasn't always this way. This is something that I discovered while finding myself in LA. And I think those are mastering the basics of yourself, of who you listen to, of your ability to learn, your emotional state, and your flexibility and versatility. I think that those encapsulate the first package of wisdom that I would like to impart on today.
All right. Yeah. That definitely, especially like, I don't know, everything can turn so quick if you just don't, give yourself some time and give yourself some of that kind of like self-love a little bit to be able to get yourself through the day. But we do have two questions basically kind of touching on both uh, what you said about mastery and then self-love. One, and Ryan, you can definitely answer this too, because we want to, the chat asked to hear some of what you thought. Basically, one of the questions was, and then this was for Ryan, basically in this education process, in this pandemic, it gets kind of, tough at times. And then for students, even as a teacher, how do you suggest, and Mike, you can answer this too, about education during the pandemic?
Babies, one of the reasons I was late to you guys today is getting off the phone with one of my students. I taught yesterday for the college, and I went live on my Instagram. I left that up on Instagram if anybody wants to see it, on my @Wyanna, WYANNA account, where I said, okay, we noticed the trend. My Black students were missing. Let's just talk about it. My Black students were missing from class, and let's just talk. Like, literally, that was the premise. If you guys go on that live, that's all I said to them. Let's talk about it. Like, it's only big and scary, whatever it is. It's only big and scary because you leave it over there. And so you think that there's a monster on your wall, not realizing that you threw your sock over a lamp, and that shadow is what it really is, right? So in this educational climate, I'm noticing that not just my Black students, any student with compassion, sympathy, or empathy for this current state that we're in, everybody is going through it. I have a student whose mom has the virus and stays in the bedroom behind him while he's quarantined and dealing with his classwork, while his nieces and nephews run around because he's the healthy one in the family that can take care of them, as well as he's my student. You know what I mean? I have a student whose uncle just passed away from it, and on top of everything that was going on, she wasn't, just feeling this whole situation. A student of mine also took some matters into her own hand and did what she thought she had to do academically, which may hurt her as she progresses in her collegiate journey forward. So what I can say as an educator is that the compassion button is pressed way in. Attendance, flexibility, assignments due, and how they're done, hella flexible. That's just Miss Y. That's just Wyann Vaughn. That's just I, right? That's where I'm at with that particular. My philosophy for teaching is to teach with a boatload of compassion right now. I'm also a trained therapist. I got my master's of social degree from Cal State Long Beach, Go Beach. I've actually even got my undergrad from there as well. I'm addicted to the school, unfortunately. Me and Snoop had a very long talk about it. But the point is, being a trained therapist is almost like a secret weapon to education. Mike Wallz can probably attest to this, because these same types of empathy, compassion types of talks are things that I've also had with our students at 1500 Sound Academy and things of that nature. Because when you're asking someone to create, you're asking them to go into a place where vulnerability also lies. And you can tell great artists because they dabble into their vulnerability as they create. And you can tell who's going to be highly successful for a day and then gone tomorrow because they do what's trendy. They do what'll catch them a quick M. what does Quincy say? As soon as you talk money or ego in the studio, God leaves the room. As Dr. Dre says, and I record with him pretty often, the ego is not your amigo, you know. So there's a space where I feel like on my Raise It Up Why account, the logo being here and all that different stuff, Raise It Up Why is a platform I created so that my trained therapeutic side, educator side, as well as my artist and poet, author, all these things that I am creatively, all those sides can kind of converge. I feel like if any educators are happening to be on this particular beautiful landscape that these gentlemen have created for us, teach with compassion. The rigidity and the strictness and the I know it all and I'm a pundit and all that stuff. I come from the West, so I was about to get all hella West Side on you. So I was about to say, man, this to that. That can't be what it is right now. It's unfair to the education process. I taught math for 7 years and I still help my students with their math complications. And what I can say is a stressed brain doesn't learn. I make my students understand the Pythagorean theorem or plotting points on a coordinate plane by talking about, okay, so here's Crenshaw and Slauson, right? Like we go there, we go Crenshaw and Slauson. You remember when Nip and all of them would be right here, right? And I taught at Crenshaw back in the day. So remember when they'd be right here? All right, so what that's going to be called is quadrant one and blah, blah, blah. Like I would make education come to my students. I don't make my students venture out and abstractly have to touch this education, because if that was already happening, guess what? They wouldn't need a night school class, which I was an adult school teacher. They wouldn't have needed the night school class. One of my students, I was his, what did he say? His 4th math class in the day. His only job in my class, y'all gonna laugh, his only job in my class was, when you come to my class, you can't touch math. Touch every other subject. You cannot touch math. Because guess what? I'm dope. I know I'm an awesome woman, but I ain't that dope. If you didn't get it from 3 educators before me, you ain't gonna get it here with me. Stop thinking about it. Let it come to you. Talking about what Mike Wallz was just speaking about with your unconscious consciousness and things like that, the stuff that you can do without thinking about it. When my students weren't thinking about the math is when they would get the math. That's just how I chose to teach in those times. But yeah, the education space in this quarantine time, it's touching upon and exposing a lot of the pre-existing cracks in the educational system, cracks in maybe people's mental health and the evolution therein. And I would even say this is touching upon and shining light on, you know, what we thought we had together as a people versus what we need to get together. And I'm a solution focused type of individual. I'm a peace focused, enlightenment, love, joy focused type of individual. Those are all the highest vibrating frequencies, by the way. When I do address my students, I just told all my ethnically diverse, I got Asian students, Black students, white students, Latino students, LGBTQ plus members, as well as heterosexual members of society. And I told all these international students, and I told all of my babies, I said, y'all ain't never had a Black auntie, you got one today. And let me tell you, shining light is love. That's the only thing I need y'all to know what we this educational experience. Y'all do the assignments, do all that stuff, but you got to know that this is love. If y'all don't know, y'all, what is it? People don't care what you know till they know that you care. Type of stuff. That's what I feel like is going on in today's educational climate, from what I've been able to see.
Thank you for that, Mike. Just a little bit of your thoughts.
Unmute yourself, Pooh.
Well, I got my back always.
Always, never doubt it.
Always. The educational climate during quarantine, I think, was an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's important to get into the habit of self-educating, you know, and while we have the time and the space to do so, it's a good idea to be a student of your own personal like curriculum, if I could say that. It's like on a day-to-day basis, because you have all this time, we're kind of like we've kind of like exited and unplugged from the matrix, right? And nobody really knows when like society's gonna resume. Because and if you're focused on that part of it, you're kind of gonna be in a state of uncertainty and kind of stress, and you know, it's not gonna make you feel confident in like pursuing anything. But if you kind of like focus on the things that you can control, which is you, student of yourself, your skill set, your own personal like, and the things that you want to bring to the world, it's like or without on a day-to-day basis, a facility you have all this with or without, we're kind of like, because we're connecting the way that we're connecting right now. We kind of like exited and unplugged. Take what the world is giving you, and nobody really knows. Find your way in it, regardless of what the structure looks like. You know what I mean? Because we have the ability to focus on that part, reprogram ourselves. We have the ability to create curriculums and programs. You know, it's not going to make you feel our own world confident. You know what I mean? And we have all the knowledge, but all the kind of like information and all the resources available to us to do so. And if we can take advantage of that and focus on what we can do versus like, what's being taken away from us, then we can actually see this moment with or without something very, very we're connecting the way that we're connecting right now. We kind of like exited and unplugged what the world is giving you.
So moving on, this is kind of going to be a collective subject all in one because we run a little bit low on time, but basically what I want to touch on is basically as an artist, you know, we talked about, you know, first of all, mastering your craft. Now, say we're on our way towards that. What initial things do we need as artists to kind of get ourselves ready to be viewed by either a record label, by either building our audience, and then kind of emanate that within the culture? Because there's a lot of things changing as, you know, the music is kind of reflecting the culture. And then, especially now, the culture is kind of stirring with the different things that happen on the news. You know, just overall, just within the politics, within everything. Just what are your thoughts about that? Just touch on it.
So, regardless of what type of artist you are, one of the key things to becoming successful at anything is to become a distinct brand. A lot of people don't know what a brand is, and that's okay. Because we're running low on time, I'm just going to point you in the direction of this piece of literature right here. Take a screenshot if you must. This is called the 22 Immutable Laws of Branding, and by Al and Laura Reese. And basically, a brand is the experience that you leave with somebody in the heart and the mind of the person that you left them with after they experience you. A brand is the differentiating factor between you and every other product or service out there that you offer. A brand is knowing who you are and reflecting that authentically and being consistent in that long enough to create valuable experiences, products, and services. And a brand is also like what people say about you. It's not what you say about yourself. You know, you have to have a compelling story. You have to know that story. You have to have a compelling product or service, but you also have to have a compelling why. You know what I'm saying? Start with why. Really, like, understand why it is that you do what you do and what's your overall goal and purpose for doing what you do. There's a talk on YouTube by a man named, he's an author, a great philosopher, great leader in the thought, in like great thought leader. His name is Simon Sinek, and he has a TED talk on YouTube called "Start with Why."
Yep.
They give an example of different companies giving a pitch about their product. They say, "Hey, I'm a car company. You should buy our cars because we make the best cars. We're the fastest cars. We do the best things, and we this, that, and that, and third." Right? Apple is a case in point where they don't start with what, which most people do. They start with why. Apple's commercials sound something like this. We believe that great technology is going to bridge people together in an effort to make the world a better place. We're doing that by creating great computers, state of the art and easy to use. Want to buy one? It's a totally different approach, right? Why is the reason why. If you know your why and you're attached to your why, you can get through and accomplish any what. You know, no matter what it is, you're going to have a contrasting journey to get to your ultimate goal, ups and downs, peaks and lows. Why? Not because God is cynical, but because he takes you, or it takes you, the universe, however you want to think about it, life itself takes you on a journey of ups and downs in an effort to allow you to grow and allow you to learn and allow you to practice until you become unconsciously competent. And you can, and even then, you know what I'm saying, you're going to apply that unconscious competency in different mediums. But starting with why, knowing why you do what you do, and becoming a distinct brand and knowing what a brand is one of the most important things that you can do as an artist and to be discovered. The second thing is creating community around your brand and creating an audience. I think that before the internet, this is something that I don't mean to age you guys. I don't know if y'all know about this or not. I'm not sure. But there was a time where there wasn't an internet, and, you know, you were kind of like, the industry was kind of at the mercy, or artists were kind of at the mercy of the industry, right? Artists needed to sign to labels. Labels had all the leverage because they controlled the resources, they controlled the audience, they controlled the platforms, they controlled everything. So you had to sign with the artist to get access to people. But now with the internet and the advances in technology, you can have an in-home studio at the crib. You can make music for a very low cost. You know what I'm saying? You can use the internet, social media, to build your own global villages. This pandemic actually has created more opportunity for us than we can possibly imagine. Why? Because everybody is connecting through their phones, through the telecommunication devices. And because everybody's on these devices, we're all connected on a global scale. Anybody in the world can be listening to this YouTube broadcast right now. And that's a very powerful thing. And if you can continue to consistently build an audience and can build a community and build a culture, no matter how small it is and how small it starts, that nucleus of people who understand what you're doing, the first adapters, the early adapters who accept your culture, create and embody the community and ride for that community, that's going to be a force that begins to attract more like-minded people and like-minded things. Like when you're a brand and you have a clear-cut focus and you have a clear-cut purpose, you don't need to extend yourself and try to impress this person, impress that label, impress this A&R, impress that label, impress this management company. Don't try to appease anybody. Do what you do well. Quote that. Do what you do well. Do what you believe in. Do what you love, and be that inside and out. A brand starts on the inside. If you are if you are in alignment with who you are holistically on the inside, your brand is that. Why? Because if you are you authentically, truthfully, fearlessly, there is no other person on this earth that can be that. So you become that brand. What you put on it as a logo, the aesthetics, all that stuff, that's decoration to who the brand actually is. I am the brand. The Free Life is the name of it. You understand? So that's what I have. Be a brand. Do what you do well. Start with why.
I be getting
Why?
amped hearing you talk, man. I mean, I'm not even going front. You know how we do when we're not even on here. So I'm like hearing you talking. I'm like clapping, trying not to make noises. Oh, goodness. My bad.
I
My bad.
appreciate you.
Do you want me to answer Manny as well?
Yeah, go ahead. Please.
So, number one, King Mike Wallz hit it on the nail, hit the head of the nail yet again, directly out the ballpark. Vibe being this, with the internet, guys, and ladies and whoever else, with the internet, you have a distinct privilege to just be you.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to remember, we live in a real big world that in a time like now has no choice but to be unified once again via these telecommunicative instruments called phones and computers, right? I'll tell you what Punch, president of TDE, told me in 2013-14. This man said, "Hey, why? Who are your fans?" I was talking about dropping music and such. He said, "Who are your fans?" And I said, well, being with Terrence Martin and the Poly-Seed and stuff like that, maybe it's they. He said, "Nah, who are your fans?" I said, "Well, I tour with my mom and everything, so maybe the Emotions and their generation of kid." He said, "Why? Who's your fans?" Realizing that I was losing this quickly, I said, "I don't know." He said, "Exactly. And you won't know until you put out the music. Let your fans find you, right? Let your fans find you. Put the music out. See who gravitates towards you." He was talking about this before. Like I said, this is a conversation from 2013. SZA, Control, all that hadn't happened yet. I knew that SZA was there. She was there and around with the boys and stuff, but she didn't have a huge presence just yet. She was still doing her mixtape series, like the S, the Z, the A type things. So the vibe being this, he say, when we had her to drop her music, we had no clue who was going to gravitate towards her. Here it's a young Black girl. I call her, she's my Black Lana Del Rey. Lana Del Rey is amazing too, because that's my boo as well. But I called her my Black Lana Del Rey. And he was like, we have all these kids out there in tutu skirts and Converse and denim and stuff like her. And here she is opening up for Nirvana at one point. This is SZA back in the day. This is pre-Control. Opening up for Nirvana and opening up for I think I just lied to you. It wasn't Nirvana. I think it was Coldplay. Can I amend my story? Thank you. It was Coldplay. Point being, this is not who she maybe thought that was going to consume her music, but did she have a following and does she have a did she have a brand that she was creating for herself? Yeah. So I guess my feedback to you young creatives out here, create to appease yourself. Appeasing yourself requires you having an understanding of yourself. If you create to appease a label or a management group or a production company, the danger, mind you, I was born into the music industry. My mom was a vocal coach to stars that I don't even know if they would want that business out there, so I wouldn't tell you. But put it like this: they'd leave my house and I'd turn on Different World, or I'd turn on In Living Color, or I'd turn on other shows, and they would be there. I'm like, wasn't that the person that was just here, sort of thing? It's like, yeah. So point being is this: since I've been in this business, I'm 38. 38 years I've been in this business. Certain people have made it that I've seen looking to make it. And when they got in the game, became a completely separate individual. And I don't know if that's because they decided to become a completely separate individual, or maybe because they didn't exactly know who they were. And the music exec that they caught the attention of assigned them who they were. Like I said, I'm a trained therapist. So it gets really tricky when you not only get into the music industry and become someone different, but you become someone different because you never assigned yourself who you were. And it's not so bad that you listen to what some other person in this industry has told you you are. The crazy part, and the part that keeps you up late at night and doesn't allow you to sleep, is, why did I believe them? How did I believe them? Like, you know what I'm saying? It starts to mess with you. It's the difference between your persona and you as a person. And it becomes a vibe when you confuse the person with the persona, right? Calvin has to know who he is different than Snoop. Andre has to know who he is different from Dre, Dr. Dre. You understand? So coming into this, I would suggest that all students of the game and creatives take a stand for themselves, decide who they want to be, create music, put it out independently, own your shit, own your masters, own your stuff. And then there's a bit of creativity and leverage that you create for yourself. If someone decides after that, hey, I like this person and I want to put you onto my fill in the blank. By the time you get onto their fill in the blank, you already own the beginning of you. You own your reasonable doubt. You own your Illmatic. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know. Up to y'all, but that's just what I've seen.
Straight up. Wow.
So one final question before we unfortunately have to end our good time. Just overall, what some things you kind of struggled through as an artist and how did you overcome them? That was one of the questions from our live.
Beautiful.
Ego.
Ooh, talk to him. Talk to him, Mike. Tell that shit. Stuff. So sorry, I forgot.
Hey, no worries. Ego. In my early journey as an artist, it was my number one struggle. It was my number one hindrance. It was the number one thing that kept me from attaining the dream that I wanted to have. And it was something that I was literally unconsciously incompetent of knowing and identifying my ego. Like, I did not know that I had one, because I'm also like, the character and the energy that you see today still exists. This is who I've always been, better or worse, right? But at the same time, who I am in my decision making and in my move making, and when the doors are closed, nobody's there, and it's just me and my thoughts. That's ego. That's where that relationship resides and dwells. And when I first got out to LA, I dropped my second project called The Layover, and it didn't do as well as I thought it did. Being egotistical is the same thing as not being in a state of gratitude. I think gratitude and humility is the opposite of ego. You know what I'm saying? When you have gratitude and humility, you are appreciative for every step that you take. You know that at the end of the day, everything is working in your favor and everything is a process to attaining the goals. But when you're in ego, you're impatient. You feel like things are against you. You're kind of like existing in negative energy, and there's not a lot of faith involved. We can get in a whole masterclass about the ego, but basically, what I did to overcome the ego was to fail. You know, I failed in my journey in LA. There were so many different times where I failed, but there was a time where God really sat me down for a second. I don't know if y'all ever gone through that.
Yes.
But literally, I was put on timeout, okay? And very shamelessly, I had to live on my cousin's couch for a year after like 2.5, 3 years of doing things my way, doing things the way that I saw fit, moving the way I thought I needed to move, and just having too much control and not enough surrendering to what God had in store for me and what my highest version of myself was waiting for me to realize. It took me a year on my cousin's couch to understand that, Mike, you need to be a student of life. Just because you have a degree in the entertainment industry isn't enough. You don't know enough about what you don't know. I had to get to the bottom of my healing. A part of my story that we didn't really mention was in college, I lost my scholarship due to a football injury. And I gave up on myself as a physical specimen, as an athlete, or somebody who practiced exercise and wellness in their day-to-day lives. If I couldn't perform at my sport, why do I have this body? Right? That's how I felt. So I didn't exercise. I wasn't living like this wellness life that I live now. And also I was still physically, emotionally, and mentally and spiritually scarred and hurt from my past traumas in my life that I wasn't dealing with. And I was keeping all that energy within me. And that was affecting the way that I did everything, the music that I was making, the people I was meeting, the way I was communicating and building my relationships. I was hurt. I was operating from a hurt place, trying to do God's work. But God was looking at me like, you're going to do my work. I'm going to let you do the work. But you have to do the work on yourself. And through that season of solitude, through that season of just like learning, studying, growing, I learned not only who I was as an artist, but I learned who I was as a person. And I realized that my ego was keeping me down. And that humble moment really created all this abundance that I have in my life today. And that was a major, major turning point in my career.
Absolutely.
And in my life.
Absolutely. We talked about some of that. So hearing it again, I'm like, damn, I do remember him saying all this stuff. This is so wild. In my world, as a young person, as a young artist, what I wish I would have known, I have permission to be me. I have permission to be who I am. I have permission to be this dope. I have permission to be unorthodox as a poet and as a hip hop artist who doesn't rap, but can, so don't test me. But
don't get it twisted.
Listen, hold up. I can't get malignant out here. But yeah, no, the vibe being as a singing, sultry, intelligent, edutained, beautiful, awesome, courageous, big energy possessor, Black woman. All of these things create my sound. At the 1500 Sound Academy, I teach a series that actually Mike helped name sound creators, if we be in a bug, you understand?
Hello.
But hello. But so in sound creators, I basically impart the information on students and young creators that I wish I'd always had, which was again that permission just to be me. And Manny, you talked about earlier, just that trying to get impressed, or rather trying to impress some music exec, trying to impress production company, publishing company, fill in the blank. I think that we as creators historically have fallen into a space where we feel like we got to put on. Like, don't get me wrong, we're in the game. So a part of this, yeah, we own, you got to be on when you're in the public eye. On, in quotation marks, however you perceive on to be. Some people put up money phones and think that they own. Some people get the jewelry and think that they own. Some people take pictures next to the man and then think that they own when the bank accounts don't reflect the same business. But, God bless us all. But again, all those are death to ego things. But I guess what I'm saying is the younger YN she had an opposite idea. Imagine going on the road with your mom and your aunts, or your brother in music, Terrace Martin. I've known Terrace Martin since I was 16, and I've created with him ever since. Focus, 3 dots, Aftermath producer, How I Met Dre and Worked with Dre, my brother, everybody. I'm a little sister to. Stevie is like an uncle. Maurice White was a goddad. So it was like when I would have my ideas with music, people would give me the you cutie. And I'm like, no, I'm being dead ass. I actually am going to sing. This is a real project. They're like, oh, okay, all right. I'm like, bro, I'm serious now. Hold up. But by coming off stage with your family members, sometimes you get privy to a report card of your performance that you never asked for. Mike Wallz, you as young artists, you guys are going to go out there, fumble, get it right, fumble again. And that's the whole vibe of how you're discovering your sound. You're going to start biting somebody else. Somebody got to tell you, stop biting my style. And you're going to discover and bump around and discover yourself. It's different when you do music with your family, who are also your mentors and master educators of the game. And they're giving you, nah, you need to sing like this. Nah, don't do that. No, you're supposed to be embodying that. And I'm like, okay, so when am I doing it right? How do I know if I'm doing it right? Taking in a lot of opinions and of people that you love. And mind you, of Grammy Award winners. Like, it's not like it's the wrong people. You're not, this ain't the wrong crowd. This is the right crowd. Trust. You want to talk about, I'm a songwriter, and then the man that wrote Earth, Wind, and Fire's biggest hit that's never been off of the radio since the day it went on the radio says, show me your lyrics. I'm like, Dad, chill, bro. So there's this sense of, talk about proving yourself. I wasn't proving an exec. I was proving my mom. I was proving to my dad. I was proving to my brothers. But yeah, what I wish I would have known as a younger lady and as a younger creative was I have full permission to sing my heart out, then bust into a rap, and then and finish the song with poetry. And the first person, if I'm being a being with you guys, keeping it a buck, working on The Pharmacy by Dr. Dre that aired for 3 years from 2015 to 2018 on Apple Music's Beats One radio. I was a co-host of this show alongside, obviously, Dr. Dre, DJ Pooh, Exhibit, DJ Battle Cat, J Rock of the legendary Beat Junkies. I said Pooh, I said Cat, I said, okay, yeah. So I was around these giants, all these giants, right? Everybody with their own style. And I remember telling Dre one day, this was 2015. So it was after we had already worked on, because I worked on To Pimp a Butterfly with Ken. And he, that one, this dick ain't free. He has this little like thing and he's doing like poetry like that. So I tell Dre on the first episode of the Pharmacy, I said, Dre, I'm a poet, right? He was like, oh, I didn't really know you was a poet. I'm like, okay, I want to do a poem, but you can't laugh at me. He said, I would never laugh at you. I'm like, okay, so can you leave me with this beat, whatever beat? So he picked the Drake song from, I think it was from Views. No. It was from If You're Reading This It's Too Late. I'll admit it. You ain't been a man for about a minute.
Yeah.
So at the end, right when the song is done, it's a lot of space. So he gives me that as a vocal bed. And he's like, bust on here, why? I'm like, bust what? He said, bust your poem. I'm like, wait, you're letting me do this? Everybody else be like, Ryan, no, we don't need that earthy shit. No, give him this, give him that. Everybody usually tells me what to do. And he says, bust your poem. I'm like, let me write it. Hold up. And I come back. So the first thing that I ever got vocal produced on by Dr. Dre was a poem. And it is at the end of the first episode. It's archived on Apple Music if you ever want to hear it, but it's at the very end of the episode. And he let me do that. He let me be me. So I had to get to a point though where I had to stop asking permission for somebody to let me be me. And YN started having to walk into rooms knowing who the F she was and just saying, hey, guess what? I'm a poet and a singer and a rap artist that doesn't rap. So, or rather a hip hop artist that doesn't rap. So you either called me for the gig or you didn't call me for the gig. What you want? A little bass in the voice had to come out. You understand? But it's how you have to advocate for yourself. And it goes back to Mike's point with what we've done at the 1500 Sound Academy, which is creating that network, that network of safety where you can be an express creative that knows that he or she has support for being who they are. But be who you are. Don't be being other people talking about, yeah, that's me. No, Negro, that's not you. That's somebody else. You understand? Find who you are and be that person. That's what.
Wow.
Most definitely.
Oh, come on, Mike.
Let's go. Let's go. Mike, you know I'm been on my best behavior. I ain't distorted to Mike once. I've been cool. So don't get me at the end.
Right. I've been trying not to turn up myself, trying to keep it calm for the people.
Yes. Well, guys, unfortunately, we had too much of a good time, but you know, I just thank you guys for coming. Honestly, it's been an absolute blessing, especially me, Mike, at Forest for the first time, just high intensity, high energy. I think it's just what clicked us off, honestly.
Yes, sir.
But thank you guys.